When President Donald Trump announced that he had ordered the Pentagon, what he called the Department of War, to immediately resume U.S. nuclear weapons testing, the world took notice. With 33 years since the last U.S. underground nuclear test, the statement posted on Truth Social just days before his meeting with China's President Xi Jinping sent shockwaves through diplomatic and security circles. Trump justified his decision as a necessary step to match Russia and China, claiming that Washington already possesses the largest and most advanced nuclear arsenal on Earth. Yet the move revives a long-dormant anxiety. Could this signal the collapse of decades of nuclear restraint, or is it merely political theater aimed at projecting strength before the New START treaty expires next February? I'm Henny Saif. Let's go in depth. President Trump's announcement to resume nuclear weapons testing on an equal basis with Russia and China has stirred confusion and concern. Axios stated that the U.S. has not conducted explosive nuclear tests for decades, relying instead on modernization programs and advanced simulations. Experts note that Trump's claim that the U.S. leads in nuclear stockpiles is inaccurate, as Russia currently holds the largest arsenal, while China's nuclear arsenal is growing. Experts say it is far from matching U.S. capabilities. The administration has provided no clear details on the kind of testing being contemplated, fueling debate about potential geopolitical and technical consequences. Analysts warn that resuming actual nuclear explosive tests could undermine global non-proliferation norms and escalate tensions with rival powers. China has strongly reacted to U.S. President Donald Trump's directive to restart nuclear weapons testing, urging the U.S. to maintain its commitment to the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Moratorium, the CTBT, according to Newsweek. Now, during a press briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun emphasized that Washington should uphold practical measures to protect international nuclear arms control and ensure global strategic balance and stability. China, which has expanded its nuclear arsenal to approximately 600 warheads since last testing in 1996, views the U.S. action as undermining the decades-long global norm against nuclear tests. This announcement comes amid Beijing's ongoing call for adherence to non-proliferation treaties, highlighting concerns that the U.S. resumption of testing could provoke a dangerous new arms race and destabilize international security frameworks. In today's episode, we explore the facts behind President Trump's declaration, the realities of resuming nuclear tests, and the reactions echoing from Moscow, Beijing, and Washington. To unpack these developments, we're joined by two distinguished guests, Mr. Dan Rene, the political researcher from Washington, and Mr. John Rossomando, the national security expert based in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, welcome to In Depth. Mr. Rene, how significant are the inaccuracies in President Trump's nuclear testing announcement regarding the U.S., Russian, and Chinese nuclear arsenals? And what might be the motivation behind these statements?
Well, again, these are things that, again, I can understand the benefits, but I still don't necessarily have to like it. The way I see it is that the immediate motivation here is pretty clear. We've seen both Russia and China ramping up their nuclear development and their testing capabilities. And Donald Trump's message here is, if they're going to test, then we're going to test. America is not one to play catch up. It's a posture of equality and deterrence. And, Trump has said it many, many times. It's peace through strength. But the deeper point here is that, Trump's he understands that deterrence isn't just about matching your enemy's rivals test for test. It's about keeping them guessing. It's reasserting America's readiness and ensuring that Moscow and Beijing both know that the U.S. still sets the pace on this. For our allies in Europe and Asia, they're going to be following this very closely too, and hopefully they see it as reassurance that America is still the backstop for peace, security, and prosperity in the world. Again, I don't necessarily like the idea of nuclear tests, but again, I understand the benefits that come from it. I do see it as somewhat of a provocation as well, but at the same time, again, it's there are benefits here that sometimes you just kind of have to take those feelings about the destruction and the what nuclear weapons really mean and kind of stuff that back so that you can essentially save lives by showing this readiness.
Well, Mr. Rossomando, if we want to have a panoramic view on the current situation as it stands now, how does the current pace and scope of the U.S. nuclear modernization efforts compare to those of Russia and China? What are the implications for strategic stability?
Well, let's put it this way. The nuclear community among conservatives has been advocating for resumption of tests for years because the wiring and the pits and the components of our nuclear weapons in many cases go back to the Reagan administration or before. So there's no bid that this would even work. So I think that President Trump is trying to send a message that the United States is back in the game and that China, that could have 1,700 warheads within 10 years, needs to think twice before engaging in any nuclear provocations.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Rene, you spoke about a positive outcome from having such tests, but what are the potential geopolitical implications and hurdles of President Trump's directive to resume nuclear weapons testing?
Yeah, I do think that some are going to see it as a provocation, and if it increases in arms race, if it tries to find more destructive weapons or find more ways to kill one another, again, I think that again it's a situation that, again, I would rather see peace through prosperity in a lot of different ways. But again, I understand the deterrence this brings about. And, let's look at it. I mean, it's been since the early 90s since there's been a full nuclear test. I mean, an old guy like me was in high school the last time that we did this. And so the restraint that the United States has shown in that time, it kind of goes against the norms of what proliferation really is. And if we resume testing, it's going to send somewhat of a shockwave, pardon the pun there, it's going to send a shockwave throughout the system. And, we can probably try to find a balance between America's supremacy and trying to erode our credibility by having these tests or these handcuffs. But at the same time, Trump is very clear he is not going to let Russia and China essentially cheat and compromise our own principles. And he's going to show that his leadership is there and that he's going to use it responsibly. Again, I do hope that this is a negotiation tactic and we don't actually go and we start seeing this type of destruction. But again, that remains to be seen. I mean, it's going to take time. It's going to take money. And this isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow. But again, something that's still concerning all the same.
Mr. Rossomando, given that the US hasn't conducted an underground nuclear detonation since 1992, how realistic is such a swift resumption, or are you backing that this is maybe just a negotiation tactic?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's a negotiation tactic. There's a lot of talk among experts on a U.S. nuclear stockpile that our weapons are so old that they might not even work. So I think the president is trying to send a message that the United States has a real working deterrent to keep Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and Kim Jong-un from thinking about doing anything.
Well, Mr. Rene, do you think that this, assuming it's a negotiation tactic, do you think it will work to pressure China into future arms control negotiations, or do you see China not really responding to such a tactic?
Well, again, I guess it really depends on how close that these tests actually come to happening. And this is also, I think, a defining moment in that relationship, because, I mean, we're talking about the trade deals that are going on, the rare earth minerals that are being discussed. I mean, there are other ways to have this type of negotiation, again, through economic means, through other diplomacy, without having to go and again, to prove that we've got the most superior arsenal in the world. But this also, Trump is super clear in these things. He will say, I keep America safe. I've done it before. I'll do it again. Again, critics like China and Russia will certainly, they're going to see this as provocative. But, Trump supporters and a lot of Americans are going to see that this is proof of his resolve for keeping America safe. I mean, this fits the pattern. Bold decisions that shift the debate, reset the way things are considered. I mean, it completely redefines the narrative that we're talking about here. And it's going to remind China, it's going to remind Russia, and remind the whole world that the United States is in charge of its own destiny. And whether they agree, whether they disagree, it doesn't matter, because this is a continuation of Trump's promise that America is not going to be caught unprepared. So this testing will certainly help out with the technological aspects of things, but it's also, again, it sends a clear message. And again, I do hope, again, it's a negotiation tactic, that it doesn't have to come down to it to actually happen. But at the same time, I mean, I see the benefits, but I also see the risks.
Mr. Rossomando, how could a potential restart of the nuclear testing influence ongoing arms control treaties and agreements such as a New START, or is it inevitable that it would lead to a nuclear arms race?
Well, I don't think that necessarily would be the start of a nuclear arms race. I mean, one of the things it could be is an incentive to try to get China into nuclear arms talks. China has the largest arsenal that is not constrained by nuclear arms treaties. I mean, China's intermediate range ballistic missiles, other missiles are completely outside of the realm of arms control. And the first Trump administration tried to strong arm China into arms control, but the Chinese weren't interested. So this could be a negotiating tactic.
Well, Mr. Rene, given that Russia and the US collectively control around 90% of the world's nuclear warheads, how might Trump's announcement affect arms control dialogues and global nuclear diplomacy?
Right. I think it really comes down to leadership. Real, responsible leadership isn't just about having the biggest arsenal. It's showing that we know how to use it responsibly. And ideally, this is about deterrence, not about aggression. And so this discussion about rebuilding this test infrastructure and carrying out actual detonations, I mean, this is not a simple process. It's not a cheap process. This is going to take hundreds of millions of dollars and years to get to this point. So we really need to think about what is the objective here. Is it to really ensure that our stockpile of these weapons remains reliable? I mean, that's one thing, but I do think that there's no question about it in terms of the technology and what's come to bear here. Is this part of Trump's, just rebuilding the readiness of our armed forces and modernizing in a smart way? And so, these next steps are going to be principled steps, but also, again, hopefully strategic and hopefully done so in a very cautious manner. And again, hopefully more talks and diplomacy will continue along the way and draw these nations closer together. So again, the risk of ever having to actually test or deploy one of these weapons becomes minimal at best.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Rossomando, how might Trump's announcement influence the defense contractors and the broader U.S. nuclear defense industrial base?
Well, I think that it will put them into a high gear in terms of working on proposals to revitalize America's decrepit nuclear arms stockpile. I mean, like I said earlier in the segment, most of the American nuclear weapons date from the Reagan era or earlier, and there's a strong questioning among especially Republicans whether it would even work, and there's a need for deterrence, especially with China building up its arsenal and Vladimir Putin engaging in nuclear saber rattling.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rennick, considering Beijing's nuclear arsenal growth, how realistic is the claim that China could reach parity with the U.S. in the next 5 years?
Not with Trump in the White House. No way. The fact is that Trump has got this America first, the defense capabilities that he continues to build up, the investments that he made. I mean, just look back at his first term. The way that he rebuilt the military's armed forces, their readiness and their equipment and things like that. Even though we're a nation that is $38 trillion in debt, the investments into our defenses are still continuing at record paces. And the strength that the United States has, that investment, the private sector that also contributes immensely to the technology that is advancing these things. I mean, again, Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, the leadership here is essentially showing additional strength. And really, I also hope that this actually shows that the United States can be a guarantor of peace, not just one that can have the biggest threats or the biggest arsenal to go and do something. Because, again, this is not about aggression. This is about deterrence. This is about peace through strength. And the United States is going to continue to be strong under leadership like this. There's no question about that.
Mr. Rossomando, how might Trump's announcement affect the negotiations over expiring New START treaty in February 2026, which actually limits the strategic nuclear warheads?
Well, I think what it'll do is serve as a bargaining chip to force other matters onto the table. The first Trump administration wanted to include tactical nuclear weapons, which are the kind of battlefield nukes that Putin has been threatening Ukraine with for the past 3 or so years.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Rennick, then do you see this as a genuine policy shift or as a political messaging towards Moscow and Beijing?
I think it's both, because there's no question that this decision is going to send ripples through the world. China and Russia, even North Korea are going to be, watching very closely to see kind of what happens next here and how the U.S. is going to follow through with this. And at the same time, other nations are going to see this as a deterrent. Some may see it as a justification to advance their own programs. Again, this is all there's a lot of different things that can happen here, and there's a lot of different perspectives that are going to come to pass. But that's why this next phase of diplomacy and messaging around this it will matter. Why it's absolutely so critical to have these conversations and have this understanding. Because as if these conversations are as important, if not more so, than the military strength and the military might that we're talking about. The world knows the United States is strong. The world knows that the United States has these advanced capabilities, but it's really how we use these capabilities to keep others in check. And if these tests and this progress toward what we're talking about here in terms of detonations and such, whether it's really necessary, and will it actually spark the instability that we're trying to prevent? And again, that's my biggest worry, is that instability and sparking something that is probably unintended by these conversations. So again, I hope the diplomacy wins the day.
Mr. Rossomando, from a national security standpoint, what are the risks if other nations like Russia or China use this move as justification for their own tests?
Well, let's put it this way. The Russians and the Chinese have been trying to get out of the constraints of arms control for some time. I mean, until recently, China reportedly had less than like 200 nuclear weapons. And they've been on a full-on buildup. I mean, the Chinese have been building missile silos in Western China for the past decade. They've been doing a lot of things that have given pause in Washington. So I think that this is just a way of President Trump putting a shot across the bow.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rennie, could you explain how Congress, especially members from Nevada, are responding to the idea of renewed testing on U.S. soil?
It really is going to depend a lot on these individual members that are going to be looking into this. I mean, some will see it as the opportunity, to show America's strength and to have that investment in the scientific breakthroughs that may happen from all this. And others will probably look at it as a danger, that they don't want to see these types of things in their own backyard and worry about that. And other members of Congress will just stand up against Trump no matter what he says or what he does. I mean, he could say that oxygen is awesome and they'll start to try to suffocate themselves. So there are lots of different issues at play here and lots of different opinions coming from Congress. When it comes to the Senate, they can't even agree to keep the government open or get the military paid. So we've got our own domestic problems here when it comes to that. But the attitude that I hope most of these members will, across the aisle, can unify around is that the United States should have the most advanced, reliable nuclear arsenal on the planet, but we don't need to prove it.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rossomando, what are the logistical, technical, fiscal, political, and even environmental barriers the U.S. would face if it attempted to resume full nuclear explosive testing?
Well, I mean, for starters, the U.S. needs to start developing more nuclear uranium pits that they use, plutonium pits they used to build the bombs. Plus, also, there's a lot of research and development that needs to go to building the new generation of nuclear weapons. I mean, some estimates could say it could cost up to $1 trillion with research and development. I don't know how long it would be before we'd even be able to field a modern nuclear device.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rennie, with China now modernizing its arsenal and building new missile silos and the U.S. attempting or planning on nuclear testing, it would be clear at the end of it that one country has more warheads, nuclear warheads, than the other. Would that be triggering a new nuclear arms race, at least in Asia?
again, that's a significant fear. And if we're having this nuclear arms race, guess who wins in that? No one. No one wins in all that because, again, it just comes into how much more is going to be invested, how much more money is going to be spent to build these weapons that, again, ideally are never used. Again, this peace through strength. I mean, we saw this back in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. This mutually assured destruction that would likely happen if there were ever any type of nuclear launching and such. I mean, this is incredibly scary stuff. I mean, it's not lost to me that we're talking about this on Halloween in the United States. But again, this is real. This is destructive, and again, these are the wrong priorities. Instead of spending all its money on things that can be destructive, let's spend money on things that can be productive, and let's maintain this peace through strength.
Mr. Rossomando, what message would be the U.S. sending by resuming these tests, flexing its own arsenal, both to adversaries and allies? How might that message backfire?
Well, I think that first of all, the message that's being sent by the United States is don't do anything. Don't move toward the brink. However, it could cause the Chinese or the Russians to accelerate. It's a really unpredictable situation.
Well, Mr. Rennie, what about other countries, the other U.S. allies, France and the U.K., for instance? How are they viewing this escalation in testing rhetoric?
Again, I would expect that they would react to this almost favorably because, again, they are going to look at this as the United States is still going to be that resource, that protector, and again that guarantor of peace throughout the world. And so again, I don't think we necessarily need to prove that. But that reassurance is something. Again, there are benefits to this that are undeniable and unmistakable. Again, we don't have to like them, but the benefits are there. But again, I mean, we don't need to remind everyone of the power that we have. That is something that is important. But it's also probably more important to keep them guessing. And I think that's where these conversations might be coming from, too, to see what is the United States is going to show. And, the confidence that our allies are going to have in the United States is again, that's worth reassuring as well. That reaffirmation of American security will continue to go a long way. And, the president is saying that America's security isn't negotiable. The world needs to see that consistency.
Mr. Rossomando, nuclear arms testing is a very big word, and it's full of many things. It has a big range. How would the U.S. decide which weapon to test, under what conditions, and how wired it is into existing stockpile stewardship?
Well, that's all that information will be classified. However, in the past, we conducted tests in the Nevada desert underground. So there would be no doubt a resumption of that. And that could take maybe years to figure out, where they would conduct underground testing, ensure they have a weapon that works kind of thing, and so forth.
Mr. Rennie, how does this fit into Trump's broader America First security narrative? Because we've been always using America First in trade wars and from an economic perspective. But what about the security narrative? His claim that Washington must act on the basis of parity.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what the president is saying here. Is that if Russia and China are going to be doing these things, then guess what? We are too. But at the same time, I don't necessarily see that as the productive part of the conversation. If we're going to be doing things that follow suit, we should be the ones that are out there leading. And so I do think that when we see these things, when we see these discussions and in these talks, I mean, Trump is not going to show his hand in terms of what he's actually going to do or where he's going in terms of the negotiations that we're looking at here. But the signals that he's sending are very important, and they're certainly something that the world needs to be listening to. That again, he's not going to stand by while other nations are building up their attempts, their capabilities to take an attack onto the United States, whether that's through a physical attack, through a missile or a warhead, or an economic attack through a tariff or some sort of other sanction. Again, it is that America First philosophy that he will continue to focus on. And again, I do think that there's ways to do this without having to go the whole way to make it happen. But again, I think that he is prepared to do whatever it takes, and he would be prepared to go all the way here. I wouldn't second guess Donald Trump when he says these things. But again, I hope that the diplomacy will turn back around, and that we'll find a way to again have these productive conversations in a diplomatic way versus having to have a full-blown arms race underway.
Yes. Mr. Dan Rene, the political researcher from Washington, and Mr. John Rosamando, the national security expert from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise on this critical issue. As the global community watches closely, the resumption of U.S. nuclear tests represents a pivotal moment with far-reaching repercussions, challenging decades of nuclear restraint and testing suspensions. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.